Hi everyone, welcome back. So today I want to have a chat about a little something called prednisone, and we'll talk a little bit about surgery and post-surgical care. This is inspired by, over the past week or two, I've had two very close family members in the hospital, one of which is in very critical condition, spearheaded by years of prednisone use and horrific allopathic care. I could actually say that about both of them. The surgery was also put into motion by this as well. So I have one family member who's in a coma right now. The other family member who went in for surgery caused by Western medical care. And then the surgery aspect, my family member who went in for surgery has been experiencing complications from surgery. So I want to talk about this. And I know many people undergo surgery. Some of it's necessary, some of it's unnecessary. And so today I want to talk about prednisone. I want to talk about the side effects of prednisone because my family member in the coma right now, I am almost certain, pretty certain that her long-term prednisone use has set the stage for this to happen and unfold in this way. So today I'm going to talk about prednisone. I'm going to talk about side effects. I'm going to talk about other routes, other forms of medicine to consider, alternatives to prednisone. And I'm going to talk about, and by the end of the episode, you'll know why I will never take or recommend prednisone to anyone, despite what they're going through. And then I'm also going to talk about in the second half of the podcast how to recover from surgery, and mainly how I use homeopathy to help people recover from surgery, and also why it's a really good idea to really think about the surgery you're considering before consenting to any surgical procedures. Of course, some are necessary, while others are best to avoid, and maybe there's even some alternative things to try before going the surgery route. I know that's not always possible, but I really want to bring that to your attention. One of my intentions for this episode is to really consider the surgery that your doctor is recommending to you before going through with it, because there are often more complications and side effects as a result of the surgery than the original concern presented. So, I'm going to say these two topics are hitting very close to the bone right now, as both of my very close family members have these experiences. And my goal with this episode is to encourage anyone on prednisone to consider other non-Western alternatives. And also, I really want to educate people on the effects of prednisone so that when your doctor or family tries to nudge or push you in that direction, you can tell them why you're not going to do that, or you can make a more informed choice for yourself. And then I'm going to discuss post-surgery recovery using homeopathy, because a lot of people, at least, and this is like the minimum, this is like the reported cases, which we know is the bare minimum that they're going to say, at least 50% of people who go in for surgery have some degree of complication after, some side effect of the surgery, of the medication, of the anesthesia, and so forth. And so the Western world, they're just going to keep throwing their suppressives and medicines at you to try and remedy the issue. And typically this approach only makes things worse and can end up, tethering you to their system for life. We always have a choice, which is really amazing. So before I get into this episode, though, I want to make an announcement, and that is that I'm hosting an in-person Foundations of Classical Homeopathy Intensive this October 6th, 7th, and 8th, 2023 at our farm in northern New Mexico. Now, I haven't launched this information on my site yet, so if you're interested in attending the live class, please send an email my way or go and pop into my DMs, sunlight_RX on Instagram, and say, hey, tell me more, I'm interested. During the intensive, I'm going to teach you all about classical homeopathy, including root causes of disease, the importance of symptoms, how homeopathy heals, signs of a cure once you give once you give your remedy, how to tell if the remedy's working, how to diagnose. I'm saying these if you're not watching this on YouTube, which they'll take this video down anyway by the end of it, I'm using quotations with my hands, because we're not allowed to say these type of things, but let's be real. I'm going to talk about the role of the emotions and the mental state of the patient and how this influences your remedy choice when you're actually treating someone. There's my quotations again. And then I'm going to be teaching you how to use some of the most common homeopathic remedies as well during the intensive. Of course, 100%, I can't lead an in-person class without providing delicious farm food and pastured meats and local veggies and so forth. So this will very much be part of the intensive as well, including some of the most epic hikes with no other humans around. And I mean that. You can ask, I just had 6 amazing women, my students, come to the property for a homeopathic intensive. It was so life-changing. It was amazing. It was like it was a highlight of my life. We had a blast, and we went on some hikes. I took them on a hike behind our house, and literally there's no other humans up there. There's no cell towers, there's no houses, there's no people. It's just nature, and that's rare these days. I feel very fortunate to have that behind our right out our back door. So I will take you there. And our farm actually provides another super unique experience and environment in the sense that there's no Wi-Fi on our property. And we live far enough distance from other people where no Wi-Fi networks even come up on the property, which is, oh man, it's so awesome. And there's no cell phone coverage also. So this just adds to the healing potency of the environment and the retreat, the intensive, which I feel is so incredibly important to the healing and learning process. Like, how many places can you go in an environment like that and learn and heal without having that crap like just totally inundating your space? So I'm passionate about that, if you couldn't tell. So that is the intensive is in a whole healing experience. So, email me or DM me if you want to learn more about the intensive, if you're interested in it. So depending on how that goes, I may or may not actually put it on my site. So this is word of mouth right now. I like to roll that way. And yeah, you can email me or DM me at sunlight_RX if you want to learn more about that. And lastly, I just want to let you all know, because many of you have expressed interest in my 18-month practitioner training course, a classical homeopathic course that teaches you how to actually be a classical homeopath. And it was going to start this September. I've had way too much going on this late summer, so I have postponed the start date to January 2024. So if that start date works better for you and you've been thinking about the course, please, of course, send me an email, go into my DMs, and we can have a chat more about that if you'd like. Let's dive into the podcast, and let's start with prednisone. So the allopathic medical system, let's just be real. It's the biggest drug cartel on the planet. Everyone is scared of the cartels in Mexico. Believe me, I've driven through those cartels and they were scary, and I had to pay people off. But I'm gonna say that the Western medical drug cartel is just as scary, dangerous, and detrimental as the cartels in Mexico. we need to be scared of the one that's in our own country first and foremost, which is the medical system. Not that they can't save lives, bullet wounds, life-saving surgeries, etc. Sure, why not? They're helpful. Retinal detachment surgery, my wife had to have that. I talked about it in my last episode, all about the eyes. Saved her vision. She can see because of that surgery, right? Really helpful, amazing. However, almost every condition, especially chronic condition that they quote unquote treat, not helpful. Their medicine isn't helpful. It keeps you tethered to their system. Once you're in it, it's hard to get out because they convince you that you need them, and their medicines make you worse, and then you get new symptoms, and then your disease goes from just some little thing that maybe you wanted care for, that then turned into this huge chronic thing. So staying in their system makes you worse and not better. Prednisone is one of the most commonly prescribed anti-inflammatory drugs, and that the Western medical system prescribes. It's commonly prescribed for conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, other forms of inflammation, allergies, adrenal issues, asthma, bone marrow issues, eye issues, gut issues like you see. That's just a few. For anyone who's been on prednisone, you've probably experienced at least the weight gain and like bloat, like, the prednisone phase. And you've likely experienced some that side effect or others. And depending on how long you've been on it will usually depend on the kind of side effects that you've experienced. You can be on this medication for a short period of time and you're going to have side effects. It's a strong medicine. It's a very strong medicine. In fact, this drug is so lethal that your doctor will gradually, once they put you on it and like, hey, go on prednisone for your RA or whatever condition they want you to go on it for, they will gradually wean your dose until you're off of it, because it's so damaging and lethal to the body, to your health. However, days, weeks, maybe months after you've then weaned off of the drug, your symptoms will return. They'll return with a vengeance. They'll return worse than before. And then they'll put you back. Oh, it's time to go back on prednisone. This time we'll go up a little bit in the dosage, and then we'll wean you off. And you stay in this hamster wheel cycle. So, RA runs in my family, particularly on my mom's side. But before I go there, I want to address something, okay? My grandfather died of, here's the quotes again. Every podcast I feel like has this theme. It has a theme. Okay, this theme is the quotes. My grandfather died of, quote, rheumatoid arthritis, okay? When my grandfather died, the cause of death was colitis and rheumatoid arthritis. That was his cause of death. When anyone dies, the cause of death is always the disease. We saw this with C19er, we see it's the cancer, it's the RA, it's the pneumonia, it's the vid, right? But those disease diagnoses are never the cause of death. It's not the cause. The result, those diseases are a result of a genetic predisposition, then got activated by taking suppressive therapies or inoculations, which those things catapult the genetic predisposition into physical form. Initially, it was just an energetic, maybe a tiny seed. Eventually, it became a chronic disease. This chronic disease was put into motion, was activated by the suppressive. Now, it could have been a medical, like some sort of medicine you took that started this process. It could have been prednisone. It could have been an emotional stressor. It could have been a round of antibiotics. It could have been a combination of all these things. It could have been MMR. It could have been polio, all of these things. But so you need that genetic predisposition seed or energy And then you need a stimulus, something that activates it. So really, we can't say the person died of this or that. That's not very accurate. What the person died of is that genetic predisposition got activated, and the genetic predisposition was never addressed. It was just suppressed, 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 suppressed. That's the cause of death. Okay. So, because if we could address the genetic predisposition without suppressing, of course, that's when we have the chance and opportunity for real healing, a real quote unquote cure to come about. Now, if someone falls off a ladder and breaks their neck, then sure, we can accurately say the cause of death is falling off a ladder and breaking their neck, right? That tracks. Okay. But when it comes to chronic disease, the cause is never the disease itself. The disease is the manifestation of a genetic predisposition that got sent into motion by some sort of suppression. The story changes a little bit when like a kid is born with cancer or something of that nature, but that's for a different episode. Okay, so back to RA. RA runs in my family. That seed is planted in me. The difference between me and my grandfather and me and my other family members who struggle or struggled with this condition is that I use homeopathy to reverse the genetic predisposition. This is the main reason I practice homeopathy, because of its capabilities to achieve this. So I use homeopathy to reverse genetic predisposition, and then I use sunlight diet and other mito practices as a super supportive foundation for my health to build off of. So, in my intent behind this is to try to keep that RA in the seed form. I do not want it to grow. I do not want it to grow into a chronic condition. Now, if I were to procreate, which I'm choosing not to, but let's just say, if I were to choose to procreate this lifetime, my children would have the potential to create a totally new seed that didn't contain the RA, rheumatoid arthritis imprint in it. Because usually it takes 1 to 2 generations to erase the genetic predisposition, the seed. That seed can be totally removed, but it's going to take 1 or 2 generations to do so. And of course, to do that, it's not based on luck, chance, fate, will, the alignment of the stars. While I believe in all of those things, that's not what, erases genetic predisposition, but we need to use homeopathy in order to do that. And then as well as the other mitochondrial practices, the sunlight RX, for example. So when we commit to healing ourselves, that affects the next generation and the diseases and conditions that they will be susceptible to. So, right now, my aunt, who struggled for years with rheumatoid arthritis, is in a coma. It's a horrific situation. I do not wish this on anyone. She went into the hospital with a cold. In the hospital, it turned into pneumonia. Then it turned into her being on a respirator. Then it turned into her being mechanically put into a coma. You can see the direction this train is going. It took me some days to be able to do this podcast because it's literally, if you looked at me, it's just like fire was coming off of me. I was so heated by this situation. So my aunt has been on and off prednisone for advanced rheumatoid arthritis for at least 2 decades now. Her rheumatologist told her that that was her only option. If your rheumatologist has said this to you, I want you to know that it's total and complete horseshit. Stinks bad. Prednisone is a really intense medication. It's an immunosuppressant. Anytime you see the word immunosuppressant, if you're like your doctor says, take this drug, and you're like, what is it? And you go home and you Google it and it says immunosuppressant, run far in the other direction. As a health practitioner, I want to do the exact opposite of this. My number one goal as a homeopath is to bring the immune system out of suppression, because this is why you got in the mess you're in the first place. This is what got me into my health issues. It's what gets everyone into their chronic health issues, immunosuppression. I know I say this all the time, but I just need to emphasize here. Everyone's like, oh, we have an immune system for a reason. Yes, we do. And we do have it for a reason. But so many people have suppressed their immune system so much that they can't fight things off. They can't get a fever anymore. They can't heal their condition because the immune system is so suppressed because of medications like prednisone, like MMR, like polio, like all the other inoculations that have a very strong suppressive effect on the immune system. And what happens is then your immune system can no longer react to microorganisms in the environment. So no longer do we get childhood epidemics. No longer do we get high fevers. No longer do we get diseases associated with microorganisms, right? What we get now instead of those things are chronic disease. It's not a good trade-off. So my number one goal as a homeopath, as a classically trained homeopath, is to get people's immune system out of a suppressed state, because that is what makes you sick, and that's why people get chronic diseases. So what are other medications that do this? Antibiotics, RX drugs, inoculations, OTC drugs, prednisone, high blood pressure meds, so forth. Any of their medications are suppressive. Now, there's a varying degrees of suppression. An ibuprofen, for example, or a Panadol has a very, very small suppressive effect. It's very mild, it's very gentle. Now, compared to something like prednisone, has a massive suppressive effect on the immune system, on the body. Anyone whose plan for you and for your health is to suppress your immune system, they may be well-intentioned, but they don't know jack shit about healing. Let's just be real. Prednisone will also significantly mess up your cortisone levels in your body. And for those of you who've been listening to me for some time, know that I'm a big fan of learning, for you to learn how to use sunlight via the Sunlight RX to help balance your hormones, balance your cortisol, melatonin levels. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that, you can go to my site. And I believe under the Sunlight tab, you can find a copy of the Sunlight RX ebook, where I teach you how to use sunlight therapeutically. And one huge reason why this is so important is to help balance your circadian biology. And the main way to balance circadian biology, or one of the main ways I should say, is to learn how to use sunlight therapeutically. Sunlight allows for the timely and appropriate release of cortisol in your body throughout the day, okay? Prednisone messes this up like big time. It's massively. Now, we know how big of a deal healthy circadian rhythms and circadian biology is for health. It's the base, it's the foundation. Any substance that alters your hormones, such as prednisone, is a dangerous idea. It's a bad idea because it will throw your entire circadian clock system into chaos, complete chaos. And the chaos created by prednisone is very hard to recover from. So some people say, yeah, I was on prednisone for a year, 10 years ago. You very well may be still experiencing side effects from that drug, even though you took it 10 years ago for a considerably short period of time. 1 year is a long time, but many people are on this thing for years and years, like my aunt. And it can still have it's very likely still affecting you today. It'll throw your entire circadian clock system into chaos. And this chaos that it creates is very hard to recover from. Years, yes, it's going to take years. And yes, it's possible, but you have to know this is going to take some time to recover from. This is a massive suppressive therapy. And it is because it's so disruptive to circadian rhythms, including, hormone release patterns in your body, cortisol release patterns, melatonin in your body. It takes time to recover from the use of prednisone. The sunlight is one way to start to do this. And I know it's so interesting because as soon as all this health stuff started happening with my aunt, I can't tell you, it was like some sort of like message from all of you, from so many of you. I can't tell you how many people on my Instagram posts and emails and just in my circle just started to say, hey, can you do a podcast on prednisone? Can you talk about this a little bit more? I'm concerned about it. And I'm like, this is such good timing. It's uncanny. So we need to know that prednisone alters your hormones, messes up your cortisol levels, screws with your hormones, your cycle. If you're a menstruating female, you may even see changes in your cycle since taking it. I would be concerned about fertility issues. There's also other issues with prednisone. It increases your risk of pneumonia. So long-term users like my aunt will find themselves eventually in the emergency room with breathing issues and pneumonia because it weakens the muscles. It atrophies the muscles. What keeps your lungs breathing are the muscles surrounding them. So it weakens the muscles. So you become your lungs weaken. If your lungs weaken, they can become more susceptible to very life-threatening lung issues like pneumonia. So we also see fluid retention and weight gain because it messes with the adrenals and your cortisol levels. And it also has an amazing side effect known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This drug is really intense. It slowly shuts down the liver. It weakens the muscles of the lungs. And so it's like you have to question these people giving this medication. What are you really doing for people? Do you enjoy your job? Because I guarantee that 10, 20 years down the line, those patients are dead because of this medication. And that was your solution to them. It creates so many issues, GI issues, elevated blood sugar issues, because your blood sugar is highly related to your cortisol release patterns. That's literally a few of the side effects of prednisone. So it's obvious that all Western drugs have side effects and have a suppressive nature. Prednisone is one of the most suppressive and most damaging to the body, which is why I really caution against its use and encourage people to think more outside of the box when it comes to therapeutic strategies for whatever they're seeking, treatment or care around that. Your doctor's likely going to say, oh, just take prednisone. It is not something to be taken lightly. My prednisone alternatives are easy. You already know them. It's homeopathy, it's sunlight, it's diet, and it's a low EMF environment. The combination of these things will help your body unwind the disease, will strengthen your immune system. You don't just get RA or other health conditions because you have bad luck. Or it's like, oh man, yeah, just happened to come about it. Just walked right into that one. Or because grandpa had it. Yeah, you've got grandpa's seed in you. But you have to activate that seed in order for it to manifest. There are real causes of every single chronic disease out there today, including RA. It's very known. It's not rocket science. But today, before I did this podcast, I just asked my mate, and I call him my mate because he's from Australia and we call each other mate, and he has rheumatoid arthritis. And he's been down the Western route. He's been down the prednisone route. And then, he's worked his way out of this, the Western system in a very integral, beautiful, inspiring way. And, he told me when we were talking about this episode, I said, yeah, I'm getting ready to do an episode on prednisone. We got into a chat about his experience with prednisone. And he said, when I asked my rheumatologist why I got RA, his doctor said, no, the cause is unknown. That just blows my mind. The cause is known. What do you mean? These are the people treating us. These are the people that are supposed to know so much, and we often put them in this hierarchical role, and they don't know why somebody gets RA. Literally, they don't know though. That's the scary part, is like those people literally don't know. And so like that's the scary part. Like they fucking don't know. It's actually true. They're not lying. They have no idea. It's so fucking easy why people get sick and why somebody gets RA and so forth. So these people we go to health and healing for in the Western world, they don't know anything about health and healing. Surgeons, okay, there's some serious knowledge and skill there. Really, anesthesiologists, they have to know how not to kill you. Is that like a skill? Maybe, but specialists and doctors, honestly, they don't know shit about health. It's just the truth. See, here's another one. I'm just gonna why even try put it on YouTube, but I will. When I see somebody with UC, ulcerative colitis in my practice, who's been on Western drugs for years for their condition, and they take one homeopathic remedy and their bloody stool and bloody diarrhea stops, I have to ask myself, what in the actual F are these doctors actually doing? Making people worse? Like, where's going to be the tipping point here that people just start to look in a different direction? Let's talk surgery. Let's have a chat about surgery. My recommendation is to avoid it at all costs. That's my advice. Now let's talk about when it's necessary and what to do. So I'm going to give you an example of my dad went in for surgery last week for a condition that I know down to my bones was caused by AFib medication, high blood pressure medication, 100% caused by those medications that he's been on for years. Of course, I told him this was the cause, months ago, and he asked his doctor if this could be the cause, and they said no. And I was like, oh my God, I literally can't. But he goes in for surgery, and after the surgery, he has bleeding complications, too much blood coming out, nausea, vomiting. What's the remedy? Epicac. That was for my students. That was a plug for you all. Bleeding complications with nausea and vomiting. The remedy is fucking Epicac. Okay. So he's losing a lot of blood. Here it comes, just coming out. They don't have a really good solution for this. Just let's draw more blood. Let's take a look at your blood panel. I was like, today I can laugh about it, but when he was right in the middle of this, I literally wanted to wring their neck. I was like, you're going to take blood to look at a fucking blood panel, look at a piece of paper to read his red blood cell levels, to keep an eye on it. It's like, what are you doing for this person? That's ridiculous. You're going to draw blood for somebody who's experiencing blood loss. I just don't understand how this is even continues to go on, honestly. Okay, so anyway, they draw more blood, the red blood cell count, it continues to go down. Of course, he's bleeding out. You think the blood cell count is going to go up? It's like rocket science, right? So, eventually they ended up discharging him because his blood loss lessened. It didn't stop, but it lessened, just his body did it on its own. And I was like, Dad, just get the F out of there. And when you get home, we're going to work on this. Just get out, just somehow get out of there. So, well, the next day he goes in for a checkup, and they send him to the emergency room, telling him they think he needs a blood transfusion. This is another thing you should avoid if you can. I know you cannot always avoid this, and you can't always avoid surgery. And so when you can't avoid it, there's things we can do once you're out of these situations to support your health. But try to avoid it if you can. Now, So my dad's in the emergency room and I'm just like, talking to him in between my day and clients and whatnot. And I'm trying to talk him out of the blood transfusion. Dad, just go, like, get out of there, just go home. And we can work on this. So I finally talked my dad out of the blood transfusion. He goes home, he gets out of the hospital, right? And I'm like, okay, let's actually work on some stuff here. But you see, this is the roller coaster ride they keep you on. It's literally a hamster wheel. The surgery, not even the surgery, the medications for years that caused the surgery, that then caused the bleeding issues, that then caused the blood cell count to go down. It takes time for red blood cell count to go back up. This is going to be, that's a serious thing that now he has to recover from for this fucking senseless surgery. And so many people have this experience. We could avoid the surgery all in all if we just avoided the medication to start with and worked on our lifestyle. That is the case for almost everyone. Okay, so of course they wanted to keep him in and do the transfusion because he was, passing blood clots. He was passing blood clots in the urine, and I'm like, Dad, just go home, So what do? Okay, they got the blood clots. We got to put out the fire first. Let's actually do it. Okay, take some arnica. You take several doses of arnica. Oh, magically the blood clots go away. Homeopathy used to be the core component of med school training in the United States. Not many people know that. It got the boot after the Flexner report came in and was like, what do you mean? It's going to take far too long to see these clients, these patients. It's going to take, there's too many medicines here. We're going to have to sit with them in the intake for too long. There's too many choices to choose from when it comes to medication. There's 2,000 plus homeopathic remedies. No, they didn't want to do that. They're not going to make any money. They're going to have to sit with their patients too long. There's too many medicines to learn, the homeopathic remedies to learn. Let's just really make this simple, cut it down to vaxes, antibiotics, steroid drugs, and then other medications stem off of that. But let's, and then just give that to everyone, right? So the blood clots stop. You give arnica for that. And then, okay, it's like, now, okay, Dad, we have to rebuild your blood from the massive fluid loss caused by the surgery and, the blood thinners he was on before the surgery. So, we think of China, carbo-veg are the remedies we think of in this situation. I'm plugging the remedies in. I usually don't do this because I don't want people to just go and assume you can give a remedy and every person who has fluid loss is going to need this remedy. Homeopathy doesn't work like that. You have to take the person's symptoms. You have to take their personality into consideration. For fluid loss and complications from fluid loss, whether it's excessive perspiration, whether it's excessive blood loss, you have to take the person into consideration. Are they sensitive to touch? Are they touchy individuals? Do they have bloating with their fluid loss? Right? Are they thirsty? Do they have no thirst? Are they have an aversion to fat? When they stand up, are they lightheaded? You have to take so many people we've been trained to, oh, you have this condition? Then take this. That's the Flexner report. Fucked everyone up. Because now we think that if you have a certain condition, then you take this one thing. That's not how healing works. That's not how we prescribe medicine in an effective way. You have this one thing, but you have it different than this other person who has the same condition sitting right next to you. They might need a whole different remedy than you to cure the same condition. So that's something we need to understand more. Somebody came to our property the other day and they're like, I have vertigo. What do you think I should take? I was like, at this point, I just laugh. I was like, dude, it's way more complex than that. It's not just the vertigo. It's like, what's your personality? What triggers the vertigo? Or are you hot or cold? It's like you have to take all of these things into consideration before being like, oh, just take China, just take carbo veg, just take arnica. Arnica, you can't give if there's bright red blood. You don't want to give arnica in these situations. It depends on the color of the blood, where it's coming from. Is it internal? Is it external? There's so many considerations to make. So this is the number one reason why I'm not just like, oh, this remedy for that remedy for this, and popping these things on the episode. That's because that's often dangerous, because people don't understand the full context as to how do you actually utilize those remedies. It's often why people are like, yeah, I tried homeopathy and it didn't work, because they Googled homeopathy for UTI, and they didn't take the full picture into consideration. Like, that didn't help, or the UTI came back, or so forth. So there's a lot to consider before just giving a homeopathic remedy, for it to be effective, which is why I have the 18-month training program to train people how to actually utilize this medicine in effective ways. Now, if you ask anyone who just got out of surgery and they come home and they think that you can stop pissing blood clots and excessive blood loss with homeopathy, they'll probably call you crazy. That's very possible. Why not? You just have to know what you're doing, and the person on the receiving end has to be open to the medicine. So, moral of the story is, do whatever you want around your health, right? I'm not giving you any advice, really. I'm not telling you what to do, but I would be highly skeptical and cautious of prednisone. If you've been on it, I would highly encourage you to learn the Mito practices, the Sunlight RX, and start using homeopathy. Book a session with me to help remove that junk from your immune system. The goal of healing is not immunosuppression, but it is actually bringing your immune system out of suppression. And that is the exact opposite as to how Western medicine works and what their mindset is. In Western medicine, the more you're in the system, the more sick you will be. We hear this all the time, but hopefully some of these firsthand experiences that I shared with you today will help you understand more deeply as to why that is the case. So, in surgery, last but not least, proceed with caution. Make sure it's absolutely necessary. Sometimes it is. If it is, I would highly recommend booking a session after surgery. Homeopathy is not preventative medicine. There are a lot of other things that are preventative medicine: sunlight, diet, EMF mitigation. Homeopathy is best utilized when the symptoms are already there and apparent. You can't, like, say, give homeopathy before you go into surgery to help prevent bleeding. It doesn't work that way. You have to have the symptoms present in order to prescribe the remedy. That's how it works. That's playing to its strengths. So if you try to take it, a lot of people, this is the last thing I'll end with today, a lot of people today are like, oh, I will just take, I'll give my dog these homeopathic remedies, or I'll give myself these homeopathic remedies in order to prevent X, Y, and Z. Doesn't work that way. It's never going to work that way. That's actually a really ineffective, dangerous, I shouldn't say dangerous because it's not going to kill you, but it's not a good way to practice homeopathy. It's not going to be effective or helpful. Homeopathy works very well when somebody has this symptom right now, this is what's going on, and that's when it's most effective. I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next week.